In the year 1241, the Mongol Empire stood at the gates of Vienna. An unstoppable force of cavalry had shattered every army thrown against it. From the plains of Russia to the heart of Poland and Hungary, Europe was fractured, terrified, and utterly defenseless. And then they just left. Why? What could possibly turn back the most successful military machine in human history at its moment of ultimate triumph? Was it a secret European superweapon, a sudden fear of Western knights? Or was the answer something far stranger? Today we solve the puzzle of the invasion that never was, and reveal how a single death halfway across the world accidentally saved the West. To understand the mystery of the Mongol withdrawal, you must first understand the sheer terror of their arrival. This wasn't just an invasion, it was a storm from the east, a force of nature that seemed to defy the very laws of war. Led by two brilliant commanders, Batu Khan, grandson of Genghis, and the legendary general Subutai, the Mongol horde moved with a speed and coordination that European armies simply could not comprehend. They were not a clumsy feudal levy. They were a professional, disciplined, and utterly ruthless force. Their composite bows outranged anything the Europeans had. Their cavalry tactics were a deadly dance of feigned retreats, encirclements, and devastating volleys of arrows. In April 1241, they fought two major battles in 3 days, hundreds of miles apart. First, at Legnica in Poland, they annihilated a combined army of Poles, Germans, and Teutonic knights. The knights charged as they were trained to do. The Mongols retreated, faking weakness. The knights pursued and fell into a perfect trap of smokescreens and flanking archers. It was a massacre. Days later, at Mohi in Hungary, they did it again on an even grander scale. They crushed the army of King Bela IV, effectively erasing Hungary's military power in a single day. The path into the heart of Europe, into Austria, the German states, and the Italian peninsula, was now wide open. Panic gripped the continent. Pope Gregory IX called for a crusade, but it was a desperate, hopeless gesture. There was no one left to fight. The Mongol vanguard was already raiding the outskirts of Vienna. Europe held its breath, waiting for the end. And then the storm broke. The invaders turned around. They packed up their camps, gathered their horses, and began the long ride back east. And Europe was left wondering what had just happened. The truth had nothing to do with Europe at all. It wasn't fear of castles, forests, or the Pope. The answer lay thousands of miles away, in the imperial capital of Karakorum, and it begins with one man, the Ögedei Khan. Ögedei was the third son of Genghis Khan and the reigning Great Khan of the Mongol Empire. He wasn't the military genius his father was, but he was the political center of gravity. He was the glue that held the vast, sprawling empire together. And in December of 1241, after a prolonged bout of heavy drinking, he died. News of his death traveled slowly, carried by riders across the steppes. But when it reached Batu Khan and Subutai in the fields of Hungary, it changed everything, because Mongol law, the great yasa established by Genghis himself, was absolute. The yasa dictated that upon the death of the Great Khan, all princes of the bloodline, every single one, had to return to the capital for a great council, a kurultai, to elect his successor. This was not a choice. It was a constitutional command that superseded all military objectives, even the conquest of a continent. To ignore the Kurultai was to forfeit your claim, your influence, and quite possibly your life. The invasion had to stop. The generals had to go home. But this was more than just a legal formality. This was a political crisis of the highest order. Batu Khan, the supreme commander of the European invasion, was a powerful prince. He was the grandson of Genghis, a potential candidate for the throne himself. His chief rival was Great Khan Ögedei's own son. Batu and Guyuk despised each other. Their feud was legendary within the Mongol court. Batu knew that if he remained in Europe, his enemies in Karakoram would consolidate power. They would elect Guyuk as the new Great Khan, and Batu's fate would be sealed. A new emperor could recall a general, strip him of his command, or simply have him executed for perceived disobedience. The conquest of Germany or Italy was a spectacular prize, but the throne of the Mongol Empire was the only prize that mattered. The race for power was on, and it wasn't going to be won on the battlefields of Europe. It was going to be won in the political arena of Mongolia. So Batu Khan, the conqueror of Russia and the terror of Europe, made the only rational choice he could. He abandoned his campaign of conquest and galloped east to fight a different kind of war, a war of succession. The pause was only meant to be temporary, but the political poison had already seeped into the heart of the empire. The succession crisis dragged on for years. Ögedei's widow, Turagina, ruled as regent, scheming to place her son Guyuk on the throne. It took 5 long years for the Kurultai to finally convene and officially elect Guyuk Khan in 1246. By then, the strategic moment had passed. The unity of purpose that propelled the Mongols across Eurasia was shattered. Batu Khan never fully reconciled with the central government. He refused to attend the Kurultai that elected his rival. Instead, he focused on consolidating his own vast territory in the west, the land that would become known as the Golden Horde. His priorities had shifted from world conquest to regional power. Guyuk Khan's reign was short and consumed by this internal strife. The dream of a unified push into Europe died with Ögedei. It was replaced by the bickering and rivalry of his heirs. The empire was beginning to fracture into separate, competing khanates, and a divided empire could never finish what a united one had started. Europe was saved, not by a great victory, but by a great implosion. So let's be clear. The common explanations are simply myths. The withdrawal wasn't because of Europe's stone castles. The Mongols were master siege engineers who had taken far greater fortified cities across China and Persia. It wasn't because of the brave knights of Poland or Hungary. Those knights were systematically annihilated in open battle. It wasn't the dense forests or harsh winters. The Mongols had conquered Siberia. These were tactical challenges, not strategic dead ends. The reason they stopped and turned back was singular, definitive, and occurred an entire continent away. It was a power vacuum. The destiny of the Western world, its art, its science, its philosophy, was decided by an internal political squabble in an empire most Europeans didn't even know existed. The Renaissance, the age of exploration, the entire trajectory of modern history rests on an accident, the accidental death of a Khan and the inevitable ambition of the princes who sought to replace him. Europe wasn't saved by its own strength. It was saved by the Mongols' own rules. It's a powerful lesson in how history truly works. It is not always the grand battle that shapes our future, but sometimes the quiet, unseen turning of a political key thousands of miles away. It forces us to ask a chilling question. How much of our own world is built not on victory, but on sheer dumb luck? Subscribe, and let's keep unearthing the truth.